Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome along to episode 87 of the Sofamanager Scottish Football Podcast. We're keeping with the same season, we're not changing it, despite there nearly being a year between this podcast and the last podcast. But we're not ones to end seasons prematurely and make decisions like that. Isn't that true, John?
Oh, of course.
So it was only fair. But no, we're happy to be back, hopefully on a more regular basis. This might look a bit random in subscription feeds and things like that, but don't rush to your unsubscribe button. The same old, wonderful, mature connoisseur, I like to think about it, content will be returning to your screens and or ears. So anyway, as usual, joining me on this week's episode is the most notorious Bruni in Scottish football. It is John Brown. Hello, John.
Hello, Paul. How are we?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, huh?
Long time no see. Is it good to be back?
Nah, well, I'm back on the road now. Well, I shouldn't be saying that on recorded lines.
Indeed. Well, you never know who's listening in. But yes, we can see that John doesn't have his usual exotic backdrop. He's returned to the land of fantastic football, which is great to hear. And good to have you home.
Oh, thanks very much.
And of course myself, Paul Mad Dog Menzies, as I'm notoriously known. That's not the case. Don't take too much from the New York Rangers jersey that is just there. Things haven't changed as radically as you might think. I'll explain myself a little bit later on. But on this week's show, we have a wee catch up and see what we've been up to. We talk about how to waste £14 on a certain streaming service. I moan about Rob McLean's bias during the Aberdeen game. We also speculate as to who's going to get the Celtic job. We talk about the Scottish Cup. There's a wee quiz in there. And we'll be covering all the usual good stuff from Scottish football. So, good to have you along. Strap in for the next hour or so. And away we go.
Hey.
Right, we're in the episode. New theme tune, which hopefully shouldn't be copyrighted, fingers crossed.
No.
LMA Manager 2006. It's the closest thing to my Sharona I could find.
No, I'll be fine.
Exactly, I'll be fine. So, you know, how you been, John? Have you been following the football over the last year?
Yeah, well, it seems to be the only thing we can do these days. It's just like, you know, it's the all-consuming thing, whether it's English football, Scottish football, Belarusian football, if you were talking this time last year, literally the only league running. Yeah, this is the only thing. It's all you can concentrate on at the moment.
Not going to lie, myself, I took a little bit of a break. You know, the teams I supported weren't playing well, and I had the running joke of I was just supporting whoever was winning. So I had a terrible brief period supporting Celtic, which I didn't mention on this podcast. That didn't end up very well. I supported Livingston in the League Cup final. That didn't end up very well.
Yeah.
I thought then I'd focus back on Aberdeen for a bit, and they went on their worst scoring run in history.
Yeah, just a curse.
I am. Well, the thing is, we've had a little bit of joy recently in terms of, you know, watching like Scotland games and you know, just streaming one or two bits and bobs, and I just always seem to miss goals. Always, just out of the room doing something else. I'm on the wrong channel at the wrong time. It's a disaster.
No, you need a new sport, hence the jerseys behind you.
Well, instead of football, NASCAR, for one thing, I found really interesting. Although my luck there is equally as rotten because it's always rain
It's always cancelled off, yeah.
Great. And obviously ice hockey, which is like all these jerseys. And can I just say, because you're a bit of a jersey collector yourself, we'll need to check in.
It's getting worse and worse.
Well, we'll need to check in with your recent acquisitions, but these hockey jerseys are like, for not much more than a football jersey, because they're into like the £75 region these days. You get nice long sleeves, nice embroidered crests. They're kind of big and baggy, so they're nice and cozy. So much better than a football top, just saying.
No. You get like more bang for your buck in terms of like quality and what you're kind of getting.
Yeah, plus like the Americans keep their jerseys for years. And I obviously have had trips to New York in the past. I have a New York Islanders jersey, and I did want a New York Rangers jersey. But the problem with the New York Rangers jerseys is they have Rangers diagonally across the front. Now, that would be fine, but I don't. It's not that I don't want the association when I'm out in public.
Well, they can certainly see you coming.
well, exactly. So I was like, That like version works because it just says NYR. It doesn't say Rangers. Therefore, the association's maybe not as obvious, but it's still like blue and red. But you know,
It's less obvious.
it is slightly less obvious. So, you've had a few kit editions. You've tried some of these, not like mystery boxes, but like subscription things and stuff, haven't you?
We're kind of two in the go. There's a guy. I'm not getting paid for this, so we'll wait that kind of abundantly clear at the start.
We wish.
No, why we do. The first one, like classicfootballshirts.co.uk or .com. Weekly deals. You get like kind of cheap kits if you're picking random one every now and again. So a lot of my kind of salary that would usually be spent in the pub is now getting spent on football kits. So I have amassed quite a collection over the last kind of year or so, and I'll continue to go because I love it. It's even just for like sort of just knowing something's in the post. It's something to kind of look forward to. You know you're getting something you're going to quite like, to admire. I kind of keep the tags in some of them. Some I'm kind of buy intentionally that I'm going to kind of wear kind of around the house and that. You don't kind of mind not trashing them, but kind of wearing them out. A few of them are just amazing. Like I've got like a Italy away top from sort of 16-17 season, stunning pure white, sort of blue trim, Italian kind of sort of flag kind of around the trim as well. I'll never ever wear it. It's just something you're just going to look at and go, pretty.
Get it in the frame.
Yeah. Another one is a kind of quarterly random kit box, I suppose, from a guy out in Ireland, footballkitbox.co.uk or .com. It's a completely random kit on a kind of quarterly basis. Pay the guy €50. Random kit appears. So last quarter was a Venezia home top from, I think it was last season's, which I would never have owned previously, but now I do, so happy days. We've had a Chapecoense, sort of Brazilian top for about kind of 14-15, which I highly doubt will exist anywhere else. And I have a Schalke top from when they were actually decent 10 years ago, signed by one of the players as well. So
that's pretty cool.
When I do get into that, that's going to get framed for sure. Something not getting wrecked. It's got Rakitic on the back as well.
Is he the one that signed it?
He's not signed it, which is a bit kind of like, oh shit. It was, I can't remember his name. He's either the current or last Serbian manager. Signed the shirt. I can't remember his name, but it's Pucker for sure.
There'll be someone in the comments that knows exactly who that is.
Yeah, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. That's terrible. I should have researched that.
I don't blame you. That sounds really cool though. Like I always find these things, it's a bit of a talking point. Like instead of going out in like a Man City, Man United, Chelsea, Liverpool jersey, it turns heads. It gets the chat going. Like, oh, what's that? Where did that come from? So it's a bit different, eh?
Some of them were really niche. I mean, the other one as well, again for the guy out in Ireland, is an FC Halifax top from Halifax, Nova Scotia, yes. Which is again, I don't think I'll ever wear it because it is. Certainly a rarity. I've never known anything like that to exist sort of in the UK. I think they're a relatively new club as well. I know the Canadian leagues have been kind of chopping and changing for a while. It's kind of like what the MLS did all those years ago.
How do you know that?
The first thing I got, I was like, "Oh Christ, did Marcus Haber ever play for this club?" Because if it did, it was getting burned.
I was going to say that would be cool if you had a Halifax top with Haver on the back.
Oh God, no, can't have that. He played for somebody else, which was fine.
I think though, there's like a shout in terms of like there must be loads of lower league clubs like here in Scotland that'll have a bit of extra stock come the end of the season. Because when I was watching the Aberdeen game the other day, I actually thought the Dumbarton kit was pretty cool. And it was like if you were to send that out to again someone in like Canada, someone in France, like that would probably have the same effect.
Well, they would love it. Even the kind of the Loch Ness FC stuff from this season. Granted, we're going back a year. They're fantastic. I mean, I'm still on the edge of buying one. I mean, I'm kind of reluctant to buy another Scottish club because I would always just buy a Falcon top, and that's religion. I don't know how I feel about buying I know it's like. I was going to say it's many levels down, but the way Falkirk are going, it might not be that bad.
Well, we did see that that Falkirk. We saw the Falkirk jersey turn up on that away days guys channel in like a Puma.
Yeah, the home top for the season.
So they're obviously thinking of Falkirk quite remarkably. But I suppose it's like their biggest Scottish team now.
Oh, I don't know who else people kind of look after, to be honest. I can't think of anyone else. Certainly in the top flight, most of them are kind of Hummel, Adidas for Aberdeen, sort of Nike, Celtic, Castor,
Well,
whoever they are.
keep keep an eye out for Sofamanager coming soon for
We
your
are shop
random and
when we go.
obscure. Yeah, random and obscure Scottish football shirts and the Sofa Manager merchandise, which is still on ice. So, but no, sounds cool. You've posted a few cool pictures on your Instagram and things, which I've no doubt will make their way to the Sofa Manager Instagram account.
Yeah, God, it's probably a good way to get that kind of started as well. So we'll maybe do like a shop of the week or something.
I like it. That's a good idea.
There's plenty to
Yeah. We were talking about at one point you could make like an entire like bed cover out of it. And not that would entice anybody, I don't think. But, certainly the content was there. What else have I got on my list? We have ended up being subscribers to Premier Sports during this lockdown period as well, using all this extra cash that we're not spending on scouting various German third division football and things like that. So what are your thoughts on that service so far? I've got down that it's kind of like Netflix but for football.
It is a little bit, yeah. I mean, I kind of agree. I have a BT Sports subscription, which is kind of a part of my kind of broadband package. I don't have Sky, so I can justify having Premier Sports instead. If I had Sky, I wouldn't bother my backside with Premier. But for a tenner a month on the kind of web subscription rather than through the kind of TV itself, it's another couple of quid. I get pretty much every decent Serie A game and La Liga TV, which is got the El Clasico on next Saturday. It's reasonable value when if you like your European football, it's good value. If you're less interested in that, if it was a kind of a nice thing to have with your previous BT subscription when they had the rights, I don't know why you would bother paying the extra, but I mean, I quite enjoy it, and I'll have the sort of Saturday 3 o'clock game on in the background while I'm watching the sort of scores come in for the UK games. So it's quite a nice kind of addition to have. I mean, I would miss it, but it depends on your budget.
Well, I got like a deal on it earlier on, and again, because I like the NASCAR and the hockey all of a sudden, mainly due to Days of Thunder and Mighty Ducks, two fantastic films if you ever get the chance. It was like 80 quid for the year, so it was like a deal. And I was like, well, I could either subscribe to like NHL TV, which is one of these, like the Americans do, like NBA TV, NFL TV. Do the baseball do one as well?
I used to do the baseball one. I was still tempted. BT, the ESPN stuff, I can watch a game a day. Yeah. I've got no vested interest in any of the clubs, really. I just watch it for the entertainment.
That's the only problem with the NHL one, is there's like rolling blackouts in terms of if there's a game broadcast, you then can't watch it for 24 hours. Which would be fine at the moment because you're just kind of picking your favourite teams, but when it came to like playoff time, it was going to get a bit tricky.
Is that localised though?
Well, the way it works is, yes, it's regional in America, but here they go by the scheduling that either Premier and BT get.
Nah, that's rubbish. That's no good.
Well, I think it makes sense because, these people have paid the money for the rights. And so I was like, 80 quid. I've been watching a lot of the hockey in the background, as you say, just to kind of burn some time whilst doing other things. The NASCAR's always live on a Sunday night, weather permitting. So it's a nice way to kind of send us to bed ready to work for Monday. And I went for it. It's all like the on-demand thing is like so good. In terms of like, I don't know any other services. I don't know if BT do it or anything, but you can like go back and watch the full 90 minutes if you want to, which it would be great to see more of. And the Scottish football is actually really interesting because I've had zero interest in watching the Premiership this season. But like Betfred Cup, yeah, something at stake. That Rangers Cove Rangers game today, or the Falkirk Celtic game last night, yeah, something a bit different. The punditry is really, really good. Because it's not Sky. They're they all do the same rotation, but I think well worth it if you can afford it, and a lot of people as well just free trial it for the big games that they they want and need and things like that. So
this is true. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. Like you ever like I went through the kind of Now TV Pass route for the day. I've done that for the Scotland games, and it's actually, when you think about it, quite expensive. But it's better than listening to Willie Miller on the radio.
Well, that was going to be one of the things I would suggest, because again, you watched the sports scene on Saturday night of the highlights, didn't you?
Yeah.
I thought, is it Shirley Kerr?
Shirley
Kerr. I thought she was actually really, really good. Gary Caldwell, no, not so much.
Basically, just Gary Caldwell. Like.
Yeah, and I was going to suggest, is it time for some new voices? Because I'm kind of sick and tired of hearing footballers talk about football. Why can't we have some more like journalists, for example, and things like that? Because again, they're doing this program soon on like classic Scottish Cup matches, aren't they?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. I didn't really keep up with the schedule.
So basically what they're doing is they're doing like watch-alongs
of... I have. Yeah.
Well, why didn't you say so in the first place? It
was a Motherwell... As soon as you mentioned it, it was like these kind of like... It's the kind of off-the-ball trope about like, Motherwell 91 Cup final. They sprung to mind there. Like, I've seen the kind of adverts for it.
Aye. So but that's cool, because in terms of, we're getting like a couple of comedians are doing it, and then a couple of ex-footballers are doing it, and then Tam and Stuart are doing it as well. And I was like, that's a cool idea. I'm interested to see how that goes. And it's always nice to watch these older games that we like never... I wasn't around in 1981 to see Aberdeen play Rangers in the Scottish Cup final, for example. Yeah. So I thought that was a cool idea. And again, because we've been such big fans of the Terrace kind of in recent times, it'd be great to see them get their hands on like a Friday night game or something like that.
To actually get some kind of actual fans involved in the game itself, and kind of not allowed in the ground, so it'd be kind of nice to have that element, even if the crowds were back, to have their take on things. I mean, you see it from a fan's perspective rather than a kind of ex-footballer who will go, well, it looked good in training and he just didn't perform in the night. There's a load of tosh. I mean, if you look at his, from a fan's perspective, who have seen him week in, week out, quite happily just berate the guy, like almost kind of like what Ryan Stevenson was at the Hearts area United down at Somerset. Right. Just tearing in. It was like, it's just all excuses, load of nonsense. Because he's a Hearts fan as well, so he had to get a bit of kind of bias in there. That's fantastic. That's what we want to see.
Yeah, I would just like a bit more energy, because like folk like James McFadden and all that will put you to sleep.
Gary Caldwell. I don't mind Jimmy McFadden. I think from an analytical perspective, he probably knows his kind of stuff. But
he knew nothing about Dumbarton at the weekend. Absolutely none. Basically, everyone was drinking the Kool-Aid of Aberdeen can't score goals, and that was it. That was the only piece of insight. And it's true, Aberdeen can't score goals. But, like, get off the point. Like, I'm going to get onto my rambling point now about Rob McLean being completely biased. And, like, absolutely. This was Dumbarton playing Aberdeen Scottish Cup, what are we, fourth round now?
Yeah, fourth round.
Fourth round. And for Pete's sake, he was like, oh, Dumbarton are really pushing Aberdeen, the mistakes coming. It's like, they've had 2 shots in the last 45 minutes. Admittedly good shots, but calm your jets, Rob. And he's been paid by Aberdeen to be their commentary, to do their commentary on Red TV sometimes. It's like, do you remember years ago, who does Jeff Stelling support? It's like Harrogate or...
Hartlepool.
Hartlepool
United.
There was a game that Hartlepool were playing someone, and it was on the BBC. And again, it was non-league opposition. And apparently at halftime, Alan Shearer went into the dressing room to G up this non-league team to get, this big upset. Do you remember this?
No, it's not.
Okay. Well, it happened, but the non-league team, after Alan Shearer's rousing speech, and he was a pundit there that day, went on and beat Hartlepool. And on the next Soccer Saturday that happened, Jeff Stelling went on an absolute rage about how unprofessional that was. And like, I can see his point. They've done his team in, and I don't believe Alan Shearer should have that inspirational power. I've no idea. But he was fuming because they were so obsessed with this giant killing narrative. I get the point that they're thinking a very large proportion of the watching audience will not be Aberdeen fans and will be actively looking for Dumbarton to beat them. But get off the horse. Come on. It was like 75% possession. I was unhappy about that. That made my rate. But not that Aberdeen were any good that game, to be fair.
It was a pretty mince game I watched. Fair chunks of it. It was awful.
It was weird though, because like, did you see the point they panned out and there was someone appearing to wear an Inverness Caledonian Thistle strip standing halfway up Dumbarton Rock?
Yes, it was some kind of scout or some script, but then neither Dumbarton nor Aberdeen were really playing that kind of mix. So it
No,
made
but
absolutely no sense.
I
I
thought you
don't know
got
who was watching.
lost. Yeah, I thought you got lost. It was supposed to be at the Inverness Ross County game that was the previous evening, in which Inverness Caledonian Thistle were wearing that pink strip. So that was very random, but yeah, in terms of as well, like obviously lockdown football, not been getting into stadiums and things like that. How's the viewing experience been?
Well,
Who have you watched so far?
I mean, for me, it's like it all depends on some sort of BT for the kind of English games.
Oh no, I'm talking like football club
Oh,
TV,
no,
like
the only one I've kind of subscribed to would be kind of Falkirk TV, and even then, it's an absolute aberration.
So I think it was
Horrendous.
Falkirk Forfar we watched together.
Oof, this must have been about what, January time. It was just before lockdown. Suspension, resuspension.
Brutal.
Awful.
So as soon as the whole subscription process was weird because it looked like Falkirk were going to take money out for every game, and then cancelled a weird subscription after one thing. But I don't know, whatever. But as soon as I saw that £14 come out my account, I knew I'd been robbed. I knew I'd made a mistake. It was the wrong thing to do. The actual broadcast was like, it was all right. It was, very watchable. The camera angles and things were pretty professional. Commentary was pretty decent. It was I think they make their life a little bit overly complicated sometimes, but again, pretty watchable. It was the the content on the park that was perhaps the problem.
The quality on the park, but particularly for Falkirk at the moment, is shocking. I know top of the league and on paper, are kind of columnists for the Daily Record will probably go, well, they're top of the league, can't be that bad. Oh, believe me, it is terrible. It is honestly one of the worst sort of teams ever assembled, and this is including Paul Hartley and Damon McKinnon and their kind of rabble put together. It's pathetic. The quality of football is absolutely shocking.
Well, John's got an agenda to make there, clearly.
It's poor though. I mean, for the kind of squad they've got, and you can kind of see it again from a outsider looking in. You look at that squad on paper and you go, there's actually some reasonably good players in there, or should be reasonably good players, but they don't kind of play to that strength. I mean, it's all just high balls aimlessly to Connor Salmon, who we all know is a big guy but can't jump. Mm-hmm. Like, and it doesn't stick. It doesn't work. And it's poor. It's really poor viewing. Like we've been kind of Joe Sked, the equivalent for Hearts, I mean, rather than shouting and swearing at the kind of players in the park, you just slam down the laptop screen and walk away.
I know, it's brutal. Again, it kind of reminds me as to why I've taken my break from Scottish football for a year, because it's just abject misery for anyone who's not an Old Firm fan, really. And even if you are an Old Firm fan, it's been abject misery for half of you.
Only one half, aye. I mean, like, if you're a Rangers fan, you're loving life. I mean, we'll maybe talk about it later on, but
No, let's talk about it now.
Okay, well, fair enough. For Rangers fans, I mean, it's obviously great, won the league in very good fashion. They're playing fantastic football. I think you've got to hold your hands up and say it's been a pleasure to watch, both domestically and in Europe. We were unlucky against that Slavia Prague, but it's given us a wee bit of interest. I think we've sort of paid a lot more attention to like the coefficient and all this kind of shit, which has been very enjoyable. But obviously the kind of antics away from that is a bit kind of annoying.
I think all I'm going to say about that, and I'm going to presume most Rangers fans won't get this far through the episode because we've already tried to disassociate ourselves with them about 3 times now, is get a life. Anyway, my problem is you've seen Rangers win titles. I think the last time they won the league was 10 years ago. It's not a bit terrible, so 10 years ago. So there's not many of you out there that haven't seen them win a title. I know it's very exciting, but sure. But spinning that on its head, we're essentially now at the end of the banter years. It looks like they're really strong contenders now for the Scottish Cup. They've been doing tremendously in Europe, as you say. But does this signal the end for the possibility of any team breaking that Old Firm, absolute dominance?
Well, they could have won too. I mean, that's now out the window for a considerable period of time again. If you're at Aberdeen or Motherwell or whoever else kind of, well, it must have been only been but Aberdeen and Motherwell in that kind of period. You've had your fun, you bugger off.
Well, that's the thing. Like,
normal service has resumed by the looks of things.
There was a season that Hearts had an absolutely stonking start to the season and broke their like unbeaten run or something like that. And then there was the season that Aberdeen pipped them briefly in like September, and they just lacked the mentality to keep that up. And like, it's such a shame that, because I think that was the opportunity for somebody. And if Hearts had got their act together, could they have done it? Yeah, probably. If Aberdeen had got their act together, could they have done it when like Dylan and things was about? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that was the only opportunity. Once Brendan Rodgers came in, that was that. But we're going over old ground.
I know.
It's depressing for the rest of us.
Yeah. I just thought that today in terms of when Hearts had Romanov, I guarantee, even though they had a fantastic team, their wage bill still wasn't comparable to Rangers and Celtic, and they could have won the league. But anyway, big rebuild for next season. It looks like. Topic 2, I've got let's fix Aberdeen / Celtic. We'll start with Celtic. Conversations taking place with Eddie Howe, which are looking more and more tentative as I read Crystal Palace seem to be more and more involved, and I do think he'd be far more tempted by Crystal Palace than he would Celtic.
I would tend to agree. I mean, Roy Hodgson must be coming up for retirement by now. Down at Palace. They're kind of iffy as it is. He's probably got a better foundation at Palace as well. If he can keep hold of Wilfred Zaha in the league. If he's coming to Celtic, he has to start winning immediately. And he's got a ginormous rebuilding on his hands. I mean, you're talking a brand new 11.
Well, I mean, so Scott Brown is leaving in the summer. He's going to captain Aberdeen. Actually, I don't know about captain Aberdeen, but he's certainly going to, part manage.
What is it, officially assistant manager? Or was that?
Yeah,
like just a coach.
Player. I don't know how it's going to work because that striker coach is going up there. They don't have any strikers, lol. So he's going up there, which ends that kind of era. I think you have to say that he's been brilliant for them.
Woodman is a legend. He has to.
Probably the most consistent player in Scottish football for the last decade.
Probably maybe even longer, to be honest.
Aye, so they'll miss him greatly. There's going to be big shoes to fill there because I can't think of like a captain figure that instantly jumps out for me.
Not at that kind of level. Certainly in the midfield, Callum McGregor maybe, but he's the kind of jury's out on him at the moment. He's overplayed. I think that's the problem for him.
He's had a bad season.
Yeah, they all have. And Christie in particular has had a not great season.
It's a shame because I've seen Christie play really, really well, and I have a lot of faith in Christie and his ability. But yeah, I think there was a tweet that went out halfway through the Falkirk game saying that Christie shoots from range, you know the rest, because he's just like skied it or whatever. Which I thought was a bit cheeky, coming from Falkirk.
Aye, like when all the shots are blazed over the bar.
Well, if they even had any shots to blaze over the bar. I don't think they had a single one in highlights.
No, a single shot at all on target.
But I actually thought that game in particular, so the Scottish Cup game against Falkirk, it took them ages to break down Falkirk. It probably shouldn't have. I thought James Forrest looked really blunt that game. Just no sharp at all. There should have been 2 or 3 chances in the first half he should have buried and failed miserably at all of them.
I mean, I think that was his first start in a very long time, just coming back from injury, which is kind of good to see. Like Celtic have missed him. But it was Lee Griffiths. He had 2, like any other kind of day of the week, he would have battered both of them in the first half, both about 12 yards out, effectively tap-ins. We were lucky with this kind of first one sort of past the post, and then the second one I completely mishit it. It was kind of borderline embarrassing, really.
They're definitely needing to kind of get rid of folk like him and move on to whatever the next thing is.
There is a huge club. I mean, you're talking like almost a brand new 11, really. Particularly if you're going to lose Edwards definitely away. He'll be going back to Southampton. You'll keep a hold of Christie, you'll keep a hold of McGregor. You need a new goalkeeper. Chris Ayer could be going to Italy. He's always been like Messi in Inter Milan. Well,
they'd have nobody. Absolutely nobody.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's a start from scratch.
It's going to be really difficult because there doesn't. The thing about the Rangers team and all credit to them, is there's a massive amount of competition for places in that first team and a huge amount of depth in terms of there's young guys pressing the first teamers. I think that's what John McLaughlin in goals tonight. He's pretty handy between the sticks and behind McGregor, who's probably the best. Well,
rolling back the years. Like.
I know. Well, he's a goalkeeper. It's not that hard. And I couldn't put together a list of Scottish names that Celtic could sign that would fix their problems and compete with Rangers all of a sudden. No. So they're going to have to be very clever this transfer window, which I think is why that Eddie Howe will be having protracted negotiations to see if there's literally any other opportunity that he can have not to take this job, because it is but he's done it before. Like, Bournemouth was a really big project. This, you would have slightly more resources, and he'd have a lot of connections, and a lot of good players from down south that he could probably convince to come up here.
That would stand him in good stead. Particularly you could probably see the likes of Ryan Fraser, whose Newcastle career is not that great. He could quite comfortably move up to Celtic if Eddie Howe did go with it. I think they've got quite a good kind of relationship there. It's just whether Eddie Howe actually sees himself. He's kind of talked about it. I think I don't know if it's on the record or not. It's rumoured that he's very interested in the job. He's very keen to take on the project. I don't know if this is just another kind of guy coming out of the English Premiership thinking Scottish football's a cakewalk and it'll fall like massively on his face, and that's a concern.
I think it's very, very difficult to fall on your face. Even if they do lose all these players, they would still comfortably finish second.
They still finish second, but it's quite whether you're going to win a trophy. You have to compete for the league. If it goes into the last couple of games, fair enough. You've won it or you've lost it, but in a competitive way. But if you are miles off the pace in the league and you get papped at the League Cup and the Scottish Cup and have a miserable European campaign, your feet aren't going to touch the flare. You're out of that job in no time at all.
And he doesn't have the
He's not
credit banked
to fall back on.
that Lennon had, who was essentially unsackable because of everything he'd done, or just how loyal he'd been.
Exactly.
Well, we shall see. We shall see. We did see Chick Young this week saying that John Hughes should have been the man for the job to go in and replace him. So again, new faces, new pundits, BBC. Have a think about it.
You can tell that Chick Young really supports him.
Well, he's got a New York Rangers jersey as well, I'm sure. But I think that leaves us, based on the Old Firm and the successes, it gives me a chance to introduce our quiz for this week. So I'm going to be ambitious and I'm going to say cue the music, even though I don't have any non-copyrighted quiz music, so we'll see what I come up with. So, here's the quiz! Okay, great music. So, this week's quiz I'm going to call Trophy Cabinet. Based on the absolute power vacuum that Rangers and Celtic have. Now, there's a list on Wikipedia detailing different clubs and the number of trophies they've won.
Right, okay.
So, some teams are tied, and basically, I am going to give you 3 strikes and you are out. And we're going to see how far down this list you get. Now, basically, for example, there are 2 teams tied in 5th. So if you get one of those teams, we move on to the next bracket.
Right, fair enough.
Does that make sense? The first few we'll kind of batter on because it's fairly simple. So who do you think's the most trophied club in Scottish football?
Is this all trophies? Just so I can
all trophies, and this doesn't include any possible rebranding or reformation of a club that might have happened in the last 10 years. Okay? To make that this is not a Rangers podcast, is it?
No, definitely not. It's fine, we've lost them.
Definitely. Yep. Right, well, so who's the most winningest club?
So the Rangers will be top of the kind of pile.
Rangers are top, 116 trophies. How many leagues?
55.
Yes, of course, 55. How did you even remotely have to think about that?
Well, I'm going to say 54 plus 1, but
well,
I'm going to get in trouble.
Aye.
55.
33 Scottish Cups, 27 League Cups, 0 UEFA Champions League, 0 Europa Leagues, 1 Cup Winners' Cup.
Which we're not going to get into.
No, we're not. The green jacket principle. Go back and look at our best bits. It's a funny argument.
No.
I'll never forget. The club in second.
It would be Celtic.
Yes, 51 league titles, 40 Scottish Cups, so slightly more, 19 League Cups, so slightly less, 1 UEFA Champions League, which I think should have more points in this discussion, but you know, it is what it is. I should specify that these are only major trophies, so no like First Division Challenge Cups and things like that as well. There are only like 22 teams on this list, which I find fantastically depressing. And is the reason that many fans will be turned away from Scottish football because there's no chance of success. Anyway, club in third, John.
Aberdeen.
Aberdeen, 4 leagues, 7 Scottish Cups, 6 League Cups, 1 Cup Winners' Cup, and 1 UEFA Super Cup as well. So more successful on the European basis. They have a total of 19 trophies. It's, you know, all right. The last one was like 8 years ago. So, number 4. Who's at number 4? 0 strikes so far.
This is where it gets a bit more tricky. Because there was a very small cluster. Based on Scottish Cups, I think it may be Hearts.
It is Hearts, well done. 4 leagues, 8 Scottish Cups, 4 League Cups. Total of 16 trophies. Yes, total of 16 trophies. 5th. There's 2 choices here. There's 2 clubs in the bracket of 5.
Hibs.
Hibs is correct. 4 League Cups, 3 Scottish Cups, 3 League Cups. It's a total of 10 there. Do you know who the other team was out of interest? You won't get a strike if you don't get it.
I was going to say Dundee United.
Nope, Queen's Park was the one that was equal 5th.
Okay, well, good though. That's a kind of bogey team out the road.
That's a bogey team out the road. Then there's a big drop. These teams have only won 5 trophies. There are
5 trophies, right?
Yeah, 3 teams in 7th. So, who's your guess for 7th?
Who are the ones with 5 kind of trophies?
3 teams you can pick from.
Oh god, right.
They've all won a league, suspiciously.
Yeah, that's what I'm really trying to think of. Dundee.
Dundee is one of them.
Dundee won the league.
Do you want to guess the other 2, even though you've passed to the next round?
Dunfermline?
No.
No, they were further down.
Dundee United and Kilmarnock are the other 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was thinking of Dundee United.
But it's amazing how close, like Dundee United, Dundee are in the same. You know, Hearts and Hibs are relatively close. So it's interesting how these rivalries are actually very, very similar in terms of number of trophies won. Right, 10th. Okay, here we go. 3 clubs in this bracket. Total of 4 trophies won for each of these clubs.
Trophies. Right, so who'd I want about 4 trophies? Any leagues?
1 league for one of them.
Oh god, how far back?
I don't know if that would help.
That doesn't. Oh man, who will this be? 4 leagues. It'll be. Somebody will be screaming at their screen.
One of them is shocking. Absolutely shocking. I would have never guessed.
He's 5.
Yes. That's the one I would have found absolutely shocking. 0 league titles, 1 Scottish Cup, 3 League Cups. All of which I think came before the turn of the century or something like that.
I think it was like before the First World War.
Yeah, I think 1950 or something was the last one they won. The other 2 clubs were Motherwell and St Mirren. Motherwell have won a league, apparently, according to my stats here. So there you go. But forgive me if I've copied the table down from Wikipedia. It was a big table, so don't blame me.
Yeah.
Right, 13th now. Total of 3 trophies. There are 4 teams. This is probably the hardest bracket. I'll say that right now.
Right.
4 teams in the bracket of 3 trophies.
3 trophies.
There's 3 league titles actually in this bracket as well. 1 team
Oh,
won 2.
Lanark.
Third Lanark won 1 league, yes. 2 Scottish Cups, total of 3 trophies. Dumbarton have won 2 leagues, apparently. Clyde and Vale of Leven are your other 2
Oof, that's
Uh,
going
right
right
back.
to the start.
So 3 Scottish Cups between them there. 17. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams in this bracket. It's 2 trophies.
Falkirk,
Indeed. Anyone
2
else?
Scottish Cups. Livingston for sure, St Johnstone.
St Johnstone, yes.
Well, Livingston will only one.
Well, you've made it to the end of the game without any strikes
No,
then.
there we go. Yes.
But look, Dunfermline and Falkirk both have 2 Scottish Cups to their names and nothing else.
It's pretty poor. I mean,
But how bizarre is that? Big rivals who are exactly the same.
yeah. Well, it kind of filters through the whole thing. I mean, you can almost kind of extrapolate the entire structure of Scottish football. Because Celtic are big teams, unquestionably Aberdeen is the third, and then Hearts and Hibs, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to get the rest of that argument.
It does kind of work. The only teams who would not mention from the Premier League, Hamilton haven't come up. I feel like there's another one, but I'm not sure.
Ross County have had 1 League Cup.
Yes, they are down at the bottom of 1. Wraith have had 1, Inverness 1. St Bernards have had a Scottish Cup win.
Okay.
Yep, news to me. Greenock Morton have had a Scottish Cup win. Airdrieonians, but there's an asterisk because it's like the old Airdrieonians as opposed to...
Before they were Airdrie United.
Yes. So it's like... Well, were Airdrie United not Clyde Bank or something at one point, and then they moved?
They bought the license, the professional license of Clyde Bank to rebrand them as Airdrie United.
Right. And then they went back to Airdrieonians, but they are now
because Airdrie United was this. Yeah.
But I just found that list so depressing, in that you saw the pie chart of proportion of trophies, and it's ridiculous. Like, who allowed this? But I get the fact we're never going to balance it with, like, wage caps or anything, because then we would all do terribly in Europe. So, cruel system, but way it is, eh?
Aye. I'm going to pat leave one because I'm beginning to kind of disappear.
Yeah, you can do that. You can silhouette yourself. I'll chat away in the meantime to keep things interesting. Whilst John finds his light switch. I mean, this is intriguing. Nice wallpaper. I don't really, are we fixed?
Oh, I'm kind of orange. This is not going well.
I can temperature adjust it in the edit. Not that I'll really be bothered to do that, but it's a potential.
It's fine. I'm actually in the Costa del Sol.
You wish. That's because we're living on an island, eh? Scottish Cup, do you want to talk about that?
Aye, why not?
Yeah, what do you want to say about it?
Yeah, well, I mean, have you seen the draw? I think that's more interesting than the actual games themselves for the most part.
Yeah, the Old Firm. Unless Cove have staged a miraculous comeback in the last 45 minutes, which I'm kind of doubtful about. Celtic will play Rangers. Aberdeen will play Livingston.
Yes.
Who did folk like Stranraer get?
So you have Aberdeen Livy, Killie Montrose, the Old Firm game, Inverness versus St Mirren, St Mirren versus Inverness in Paisley. You got Forfar against Dundee United. It's a very interesting game. Motherwell versus Morton. I don't think Morton in particular don't think really wanted to kind of go through. All these kind of fixture pile-ups, all these kind of lower league clubs don't want to go through.
Yeah.
We've got St Johnstone versus Clyde, and Stranraer will play either Queen of the South or Hibs. As the kind of final tie. That's played on Monday night.
I'd be interested in that. There wasn't really many upsets this round as such. I did think that who was playing Dundee United? Was it Montrose? No, it wasn't Montrose.
Partick Thistle.
Partick were super unlucky.
I mean, this is kind of going back to the Nicky Clark incident. I think it's the kind of one of the biggest talking points of the round for the Disney clubs anyway.
They were so washy about it in sports. It was like he just skittles the two guys together in the same way that everyone kind of hummed and hawed, because there was that thing where Joe Lewis like grabbed one of the Dumbarton strikers when he didn't need to, and it's like, why are you even giving them? But that was a definite penalty. I thought they were very wishy-washy in that. The Partick kit was interesting. Was it something historic or something, because it was all blank.
It must have been very nice. I mean, a really nice looking kit. I'm not going to buy it, but
but Partick will certainly feel aggrieved. Who was the Highland League? Was it Brora that got done in and like
Formartine beat 5-0 off Motherwell.
Fairly comprehensive.
You could quite comfortably say they hadn't hardly played a game or kicked a ball in so long.
Yeah.
So that was a bit of an inevitability. Brora, they pushed themselves against Stranraer, I think it was.
Yes.
3-1 after extra time, so they'll be a bit unlucky there. The same kind of thing, I think it was just fitness. There wasn't such a high against Hearts.
I'm glad we mentioned it.
What a fantastic result that was. You know?
I work with a lot of Jambos, so I think I told you this, but went into work the next day. I was like saying to my boss, like, "Oh, you got a big salary increase now. You can go on these nice holidays." He's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Do you know where I think you should go?" And he's like, "Where?" I hear Brora's really nice this time of year. And he responds to me like, "Yeah, but I hear Bora is actually really nice." No, Brora. Yeah, no, Bora, like really nice temperature. And just tries to like gaslight me, like the whole way through this conversation. I'm like, I'm bringing this up, deal with it. They're very much the prodigal Falkirk as well, in terms of, looking fairly comfortable in their league, but just, again, they drew 0-0 with Dunfermline today.
They've been absolutely shocking. You kind of look at their performances and think, how on earth are they that far ahead in the league? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, it shows how poor the rest of the league is, I suppose. But nobody else must be a sugarly peg and all. Like,
it's one of these things that you can't really sack him if he wins the league, but
it should be though.
Well, yeah,
performances are dreadful. Like,
proof's in the pudding. They have made some bad signings. Like, folk like Mackay Stephen have done nothing for their fortunes. Naismith and things like that as well is going to be less than ideal. So yeah, but anyway, Scottish Cup, they're not in it. Lol. So yeah, it was a shame that Brora got beat in extra time from Stranraer. They literally didn't even have any scaffolding at the game for the camera angle.
I was seeing the back of the head of the linesman.
Well, the thing is, like, when I was at Pennycook years ago, when Stennismuir played them, they did pay for the scaffolding to go up there. So they must not physically have been able to get it to Brora.
Yeah. The best highlights though were Fraserburgh against whoever they were playing. I forget. A low league team.
Forfar, maybe
Montrose.
I think it was Montrose.
It was Montrose and the Mighty Bow. Their kind of one of the goals was a fantastic overhead kick. From about 18 yards out. Worth a watch if you can go back and watch the highlights if you haven't seen it already. But the background is always like the kind of Fraserburgh church. And there's a few like fishing boats in the background as well. It's a perfectly like beautiful day, blue sky. A couple of guys kind of like peering over the kind of walls, just watching the game. Lucky buggers, geez.
That'll appear.
That was perfect, inch perfect.
That'll appear in our Stadium of the Week chat soon, no doubt.
I'd love to go up there. Like.
Well, it's funny because I've seen it before because they played Rangers like last season, the season before, and it was on telly. So yeah, it was
quite an iconic kind of stadium. Yeah.
It's amazing actually how well the Highland League teams do, considering you think of like the Lowland League teams who you have all Central Scotland population down here to kind of pull from. They have next to nobody, and the teams are pretty comparable, if not. You look at Cove or head and shoulders.
Better. Absolutely storming the leagues. It'll be interesting to see. It will be. I think the playoff games at the bottom of League 2 for the Highland and Low League champions are still going to play each other.
Yes.
So you're going to have Kelly Hearts eventually play
Brora
Rangers to then play Brecon, hopefully, and get them relegated.
Oh, it's such a shame for Brecon. That is such a shame for Brecon.
Justice at last.
It's not justice. They were brilliant. They were the darlings of Scottish football, and they absolutely quivered at the prospect of the championship, and they've never got their knees back since then, unfortunately. Yeah. And you cannot deny a visit to the Hedge is an excellent.
It's a good drive up there for the Central Belt. It's really good.
It was my favourite stadium I went to when I was Stennismuir. And Falkirk for that matter as well.
It's characterful for sure. They're even done. Like, the interesting thing, if we're kind of looking that far ahead, is Kelty going into that game. They're going to have a match fit Nathan Austin, presumably coming back for his five, which could be a bit of a kind of game changer out of that.
But I find this utterly bizarre, and that there's been a big trend recently of these lower league, like non-league side essentially, picking up players who are more than capable of playing in the professional leagues.
Yes, yeah.
And I know Nathan Austin will be pretty pleased. He's getting paid good money. He's scoring a lot of goals. But, like, yeah, these guys, they should be in the professional leagues. We do
He
not.
couldn't cut it at full-time football, though. That was one thing I kind of let him down.
He was not far off. Like he was. He was so close at Falkirk. He was very young when he was at Falkirk. He just lacked the final product. He had a good pace, so he could run. And then at Inverness, he was a good bench player. Like he came off and did interesting things. Because he started at East Fife and did pretty well at East Fife initially, didn't he?
Yeah, he was absolutely roasting at East Fife, came to Falkirk for the kind of step up to full-time football. He probably came to Falkirk a season too late. If he had arrived the season before, when Falkirk were actually doing really quite well, that was the kind of last day against Kilmarnock kind of team. I think he would have developed a lot better in that kind of environment. The season after, it was, again, got to kind of playoffs, but you could see things were beginning to kind of need a bit of refreshing, and he just came in at slightly the wrong time.
Yeah.
He never really, he couldn't settle into that kind of team. He couldn't, the pressure was on him to get all the goals, basically.
Yeah.
Given the season before, I think he would a different kind of player for him, but as is life, it's not quite worked out.
The good news is I've got 3 minutes left on my camera, so I'm going to grab my charger and you're going to moan about Colt teams for 2 minutes, okay?
Oh, right.
3, 2, 1, go.
Actually, our Colt teams, oh man. I'm interested to see what kind of happens with them. I think it could work if the leagues are expanded. I think we could see, a reasonable bit of competitiveness. I think you're going to see a few kind of Highland and Lowland League teams come up as well, which could be a kind of really interesting boon for that kind of league. I think longer term as well, so that's a good experiment to see whether the sort of expanded leagues could kind of work, certainly within League One in particular. 16 teams, you could comfortably do home and away. You can argue with me if you want for a split. I'm not overly bothered by that. But
I fully agree.
Yeah. we'll discount all of that.
Are you not happy about them?
You know what? I don't mind. I'm less angry about it than other people are, because I'd like to see an expanded league. So it's kind of cut your nose to spite your face a wee bit.
I think
so if you're going to get a 16 team, or even an 18 team League Two, I think that's far more efficient and better for a lot of these kind of clubs. They may disagree with me, but that's my opinion.
No, I would agree. I think we're at the point now where, especially where our professional league's too far expanded. And we saw that, and they know that, because they only let Premiership and Championship clubs come back playing, and League One, League Two were left to it.
They're the only two kind of full-time, kind of, if you want to call it full-time, in existence. So
I think what you've really got to do here is almost split the structure into pro and semi-pro, and say that, probably leave the top two leagues as they are, because that's kind of working out all right, even though it would give the potential for an expanded league, and then you have the sort of semi-pro level where, again, I think the point of expansion is good. But yeah, Colt teams, I don't know. I like the idea of partnerships was the main thing. Like,
I think they want their own branding on things, which is understandable.
But like,
and the idea doesn't sit well in isolation. The Colt teams is just a no-go. But I think if you take a holistic view, the whole package, I think it's something you might need to kind of stomach to get what's probably better for the whole game, and that's an expanded kind of bottom tier. I don't see the point. Why would a team, say like Stranraer, right? What is the purpose of them travelling up to Elgin twice a season? That is a logistic on its own, and the cost involved in that is just a complete and utter nonsense. A bigger league, they don't have to do that journey once. They might have to travel further up to Brora, but it's only the one journey, and there's a bit more kind of variety in there as well, which I think you could probably sell it a little bit better. Nobody's going to buy the TV rights to it, but I think if you want to try and generate a wee bit of interest, I think there's something there, and the Colt teams unfortunately need to come with it.
See, I actually, like for example, say if Cove Rangers were actually Cove Rangers, and like you then ended up with like Brecon Celtics or something like that, I don't see a problem with that. Again, like in places like hockey, even like baseball, basketball, everything, they've all got their affiliate teams, which,
Aye.
people are loaned out to, and they've got those relationships. Now, it's obviously beneficial, like, if one team signs up with Rangers and Celtic and someone else is stuck with like the St Mirren youth and stuff like that. But I do think that would generate a little bit more interest from the kind of broader public. And I actually think, because you're talking about, not being interested in the TV rights and things, I honestly think there's a massive scope for a platform, like a centralised platform, where you can go and find all the League 2 highlights, all the League 1 highlights. And if everyone were to just band together, because at the moment, like, see the scattergun approach to how everyone does their highlights and things like that.
It's poor. Aye. It's not helpful.
It doesn't benefit anybody. And I know that they will get, decent sponsorship money from companies that sponsor these things, but if you put that all in one place and you have like an SPFL TV, it wouldn't need to be like, live streaming stuff, but I think it would help the game massively in that, for example, like when I was Stennismuir cameraman, I would always go to the away games to film the matches. I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah, I mean, you can run the one feed. There's no problem in that.
You run the one feed, you can have different commentary from that if you want to. But I think, it just provides more of a narrative, because these leagues are really interesting. There are, and again, Terrace is really good at pointing these things out, these amazing, like Willie Gibson, for example, in the last few weeks, they've pointed out that you would have never known about had you not gone to, like, Dundee TV? Is he a Dundee player? Or
Queen of South.
Queen of South, sorry. And then we've talked a lot about, Lewis Vaughan, who scored an absolutely cracking goal at the weekend.
Yeah, great free kick.
I was thinking to myself, why isn't he at Premier League team? And then they said, come back from another knee injury, and I'm like,
nah, he's had 3 really bad injuries. At least one of them was an ACL. So that's cuttings usually. But that's kind of like Peter Grant levels. Sort of really bad knees. I mean, he's another one who at the time could have been. You could have seen him in the Scotland squad, if he'd kind of kept his trajectory at the time of Falkirk.
What could have been? But
playing at Queen's Park.
No, I think that'd be great. And again, even if you got some sort of off timetable games, like, because again, people are tuning in. For example, you've been watching these Friday night games of the BBC, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, this is the other thing. This kind of goes back to what we've been kind of doing during lockdown to get our kind of football fix. I'll tell you, the Friday night games, particularly when I'm kind of down in London, and when I'm down in London at the moment, nothing Nicola. They're a godsend, because like otherwise I would never you don't really get kind of in touch with it quite as much. Mm-hmm. Having that through the iPlayer is brilliant. Weirdly, you kind of look forward to watching Dundee play Inverness on a Friday night.
There's been a few brutal fixtures.
There has been. Alloa Hearts was a pretty poor watch. Queen of the South Hearts was a really poor watch. But even going back to the beginning of the season, the very first game, Hearts winning 4-0 against Dundee, I think it was 4 at Tynecastle. It was brilliant just to kind of see that and get that fix. And I think I'm not the only one that kind of feels that way about it as well. So there is a kind of community there that's going to watch these kind of things. And it's about kind of trying to pick that up and get it kind of more sort of publicised and create a bit of interest. And when crowds come back, is to try and drive crowds into these games as well, because I think that's the biggest bit. If Falkirk did get promoted, having a Falkirk Dunfermline game live on the BBC on a Friday night under the floodlights, that could generate a fantastic crowd, really, really big crowd.
I know that the clubs hate it because they have to shift it randomly and they lose out on a lot of hospitality cash.
Yeah, but I mean, if it was up and through the gate,
well, if it was a bit more thought out and pre-planned, that wouldn't be an issue.
That's exactly
it. Again, I do think the punditry on those games is awful. And Stephen Thompson just always looks feared for his life every time the camera cuts to him in these situations, because he's a pundit, he's not a host.
Well, the other thing as well, I mean, it needs a bit kind of fine-tuning and something with a bit kind of boldness to say you need characters from the lower leagues to start getting involved in these games, rather than relying on Stephen Thompson, who's probably never played in the Championship to any great degree. He spends most of his time looking at the Scottish Premiership, as does Shelley Kerr, as does James McFadden. Why are you not getting sort of pundits or ex-football players who have plied their trade in Championship, League 1, League 2 across a couple of clubs. I mean, there's bound to be a few of them.
There's loads of characters. You could get
Like
Dick Campbell on. You
Dick
can
Campbell
get
could be in.
Ian McCall. Jim.
Danny Lennon was absolutely fantastic on the terrace. What a character! I mean, you'd love to see more of that kind of thing. Like, these are the kind of people you want to see on your screens.
I loved Craig Brown on this week, talking about all the big names and stuff. And basically his attitude was, if you don't do what I tell you, you're benched. Like, Don Hutchison, if you don't, intercept Cafu's passes to Ronaldo, you'll be sitting next to me. And then George Burley, if you don't go absolutely through Zidane, you'll be sitting next to me. I was like, oh, he's such a soft old guy. But to hear him talk like that with that fire, it's just like, that sounds amazing. Like, what a time.
That's for you. That's kind of content you want. And for these guys to be kind of personable and tell you the stories, not to be kind of media trained and be kind of ghosts of themselves.
Aye.
There's fine tuning to bad.
I know. I don't mean to pick on these people because I know it's a very difficult job, but I just know there's so many people out there that have so much to give. And see, for the young people that like dream of being like a football pundit or a football host, it's just impossible these days to get to, because Jonathan Sutherland will do that till the day he dies, for example.
Oh, why would they give that up? I mean, that's a cushy number. Like.
Exactly. And it's just a shame that we don't get a little bit more variety. I often think that with women's football, especially, like, for example, that match on Alba today, I watched like the first half. Glasgow City, I think, went and beat Celtic 3-0. First goal was atrocious. I have no idea how it went across the line. It was like, those Rocket League ones that you don't mean, and it just like trickles over at a really slow pace, and you're like, how did nobody get to that? But, anyway. But again, you look at the stands, and it's all guys up there reporting on it. I'm like, surely there's a bunch of girls that would do like something cool, on it. Because again, these voices just aren't heard.
Yeah, they're not getting the airtime and they should be. I mean, the people that know the game inside out, they should be putting it forward, not some Haddy who made their career in another league. It doesn't make sense.
Exactly. I do find it funny that the Alba man drops into English every now and then during the coverage, though. You're like, oh, you can do it, can't you?
The best one I think I've ever heard of that was he was on with Gus McPherson. Kind of like to get a really strong Glaswegian accent and that. And this guy like sort of talking in Gaelic and then just cuts and goes, so Gus starts asking all these questions in English. And it kind of catches Gus McPherson off guard a wee bit because he effectively zoned out when he's like speaking Gaelic. Mm-hmm. And he's like, and he started talking about this kind of stuff about the game. It must have been someone that were playing. But I found that absolutely hilarious.
Again, there's surely some Gaelic-speaking pundits they could get on. I can't name you any Scottish footballers, but like, what about that? There's that team that's always on the terrace again. That's like out west and like the Islands. Surely one of them speaks Gaelic. Eriskey, get one of them over. They'll be able to do it. But no, I can see that we're kind of approaching the hour on my camera over here. So I think that was a pretty good return, John, don't you?
We're back. We're good to go.
Back. Bit of self-affirmation at the end of the episode if you managed to make it here, which I sincerely doubt. Hi, Rangers fans.
He's brutal.
Don't skip to this and screenshot it and share it on the forums. Like, I can't deal with that. I just can't. Okay, hail, whatever you say. But no, thank you very much for listening, and we hope you join us again in the future. From myself, Paul.
Yeah, all the best, guys. John.
And have a good evening, a good afternoon, and a good morning. Goodbye.
Bye.